another episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Today we're going to talk about and go for a ride in one of the most iconic race cars of all time, the 1932 Alfa Romeo Monza. This is the 2300 series car. Not quite 2.6 liters, just a hair under that, but for the sake of argument, we'll call it 2.6 liters. This is the car Nuvolari raced in. Not the actual car, one like this, of course. 4-speed gearbox, and one of the most beautiful engines of all time. Here, let me show you this motor. Let's open up this. 1932 is my favorite year because it was the year cars really came into their own. By 1932, cars were here to stay. 1932, you had V12 Packards, you had V16 Cadillacs, you had V16 Marmons, you had synchromesh transmission, four-wheel brakes were pretty much standard. Cars were here to stay. They were long-distance vehicles. They weren't just the toys of the rich anymore. You had the Model A, the Model T, and as well as, you know, cars like this and Duesenbergs and everything else. It was a very exciting time to be a car enthusiast. But look at this engine. I think it's safe to say there's no modern engine today that's as exciting to look at as this. Look at the beautiful finning here. Supercharger down there. There's your carburetor. Twin cam. Plugs are in the center. Looks almost modern, but this engine was designed in 1932. Vittorio Jano was the designer. He was a legendary, one of the great of the top 10 designers. He's certainly right in there with Mark Burkett and Duesenberg and Bentley, and some may even say ahead of those guys. Four-wheel brakes. Carry an extra spare tire right here. Very simple dashboard, clutch, and then your gearbox in the back. Look at this beautiful transmission right here. Just a proper, no paddles on this thing. This is when the men were men and the women were glad of it. Yes, sir, Bob. Wooden ships, iron men. This is when you raced a car without a helmet and short sleeves, smoking a cigarette. It was an exciting time to be a car race driver. But the most fascinating thing about this car, now I want you to look at it. Look at it. Let's go over the car very carefully. Got a nice patina, doesn't it? Yeah. Looks well used. Looks like it spent the last 80 years being pampered and taken care of. Trouble is, this car is not 80 years old. This car was built in 2007. This is built by Pursang. They're that company in Argentina you've heard me talk about and I've written about in articles and magazines. They do beautiful replicas of Bugattis and now Alfa Romeos. And I use replica in the proper sense of the word, an exact copy. This isn't something that has a Ford Pinto rear end and a modern 6-speed transmission. Every part is lovingly copied and detailed to give you an exact copy of a car that has the road feel and drives just like a car would in 1932. John Bothwell. John, coming in here. John is, I guess, Director of Sales for the American market. Is that what it is?
That's right.
Now, he comes from a legendary car family. His uncle and his aunt were some of the original car collectors. They owned the 1913 Peugeot that won Indianapolis, and they have a party every couple of years where they put all the cars on display, and you seem to have inherited all of that. And now you're in Argentina working with this company.
That's right.
Now, tell people a little bit about the company before we drive the car.
Well, the company was founded by Jorge Anadon about 30 years ago, and out of his love for cars and wanting to be able to drive them himself, he built himself a Bugatti, actually in his living room of his house. And it was never meant to be anything commercial, but it was a beautiful car, and his friends ended up asking him if they could buy one, and it moved on from there, and he's built hundreds of automobiles since then. Yeah,
and I've got two of his Bugattis. You may have seen one in the restoration blog when we were, I was going a little fast, and we had to, we blew a gasket. Well, go back through the restoration blogs, you'll see it. We'll do a road test on that very soon. This is their latest offering. How many of these Alphas have they built?
We've built 18 8C Alphas, okay. 8 of which have been Monzas.
Okay, and as you can see, exactly the way they would have been built back in the day, correct?
That's right,
yeah.
That's right.
I mean, you do your own casting, you do your own molding. What does a car like this cost?
Well, I can put it to you this way. It costs less than 10% of one of the originals that are on the market today. And I think the last one sold for about $7 million US.
Something like that, yeah, yeah. So this is in the $400,000 to $500,000 range?
That's right.
Yeah. Now, I know that's a lot of money, but try to get engine pieces and try to have things made, and you find out that cost escalates pretty quickly. Anybody who builds cars for a living will tell you they don't know how you can build it for that kind of a price, because you get the look, the feel, everything as it was back in the day. And I have to admit, you know, I've got a couple of real Bugattis, and when I want to go out and have fun and just beat the heck out of one and drive it the way it was intended to drive, I take my Poussin out, because it's a brand new car, basically, but you can treat it as a brand new car because everything is new. You can slide around in it, you can rev it. I mean, you can just drive it as a race car. It isn't a Pebble Beach thing where you have to be very careful about damaging something. You know, it's almost like having real jewelry and then custom jewelry made exactly the same, so you can go out and have fun with it. And that's what this is meant to. These are meant to be driven and used as cars.
That's right.
Tell us some more features of the car. Take us around it.
Well, the engine's pretty interesting. You have a bi-block aluminum engine with aluminum crankcase. There's a gear train in the middle, so you essentially have two 4-cylinder engines back to back. The gear train in the middle here is driving your supercharger, which is connected to a Weber carburetor. It's a dry sump engine, which means the engine is relatively low in the chassis. You have a low center of gravity. The oil tank is here just in front of the cockpit under the floor. It's a very impressive car to drive because it's a light chassis with a very powerful engine, puts out about 180 horsepower. And I think for me the most interesting thing is, having driven a lot of Bugattis and us building Bugattis, this is the car that pretty much ruined Bugatti's lucky streak during the European racing years. This is the one that did it. And after having built 10 Monzas, Alfa Romeo went on to build some of their more famous 8C cars, like the Mille Miglias and the 2.9s,
right,
the 308s, and those were all of Vittorio Gianni's design also, leading up to the P3. So this was the beginning of it all for Alfa Romeo and the beginning of the end for Bugatti in many senses.
Now this car arrived here, about a week ago. Just the body came, body and chassis, and then gradually the engine pieces came and the transmission came, and we assembled the whole thing here at my shop. Here, take a look.
So this just came in from Argentina. It was shipped separate from the chassis. We're going to hoist up this engine, and we're getting ready to lower it into the chassis. And now we're going to reunite the two pieces again. As you can see, the car is finished and it's ready to drive. Let's show people around the cockpit a little bit. As you see, very simple dashboard, as most cars had then. What is this here? That's your electricity master. Oh, that's your master cutoff switch. Okay, that wouldn't have been, yeah. And here's your lockout for reverse. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you guys make everything except the gauges, is that correct? That's correct. Yeah. We even make the tires. Pretty amazing. There's some real craftsmen down there. But you know, that's what Bugatti did. Bugatti lived in a rural area,
And he used local guys and trained them, and they became apprentices, and they worked at the factory. And this is built exactly the way the race car was. This is your advance and retard.
That's right.
You'll notice it has a center throttle with the brake on the left and the clutch on the a brake on the right, rather, and the clutch on the left. You don't want to hit the brakes hard and forget, because you will stomp on the accelerator pedal. The amazing thing is how modern this engine sounds. You fire it up and people think, is that a Corvette? Is that a small block? What is that? You know, it's 2.6 liters. Pretty amazing, pretty amazing. What else can we see? You have obviously drum brakes all the way around.
Twin shock absorbers on the back.
Right.
The later Alfa Romeos would take off one of them, like on the Mille Miglia design, and this being a more sporty version for high-speed turns and races,
Right.
they put two. Other than that, the chassis is equal to the Mille Miglia design.
Well, let's take it for a ride and see what she does.
You know, the amazing thing about this car is, even though it's like 80-something-year-old, you find yourself, all the other traffic is slow moving. I know vintage racing is a lot of fun, but boy, it's really great fun to drive a car like this on the street. Imagine driving this back in 1932. Nothing could catch you. Wow, what an exciting car to drive. I've driven the real Monza, and you know something, I can't tell the difference. Everything is the same, the sound, the smell. Wonderful gearbox. And that sound. What a sound! Wow, what a car. The amazing thing is how comfortable it is to drive. I mean, unlike the Bugatti, I'm not cramped in here. There's plenty of leg room. It steers very nicely. Let's take it up on the freeway, see how she does on highway work. She does on the freeway. Oh, what an amazing automobile. Very comfortable to drive. Feels almost modern, really. You'd think it'd be bouncing all over the freeway. It's really not. Plenty of leg room. This could be a very sensible family car. I love the gate on the gear change. Take a look. I love double clutching.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your ride in this piece of history. It was pretty amazing. So check out Pur Sang. It's so nice to see people recreating history as accurately as this. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.